In fintech, well, that was probably AMP Bank, which was a long time ago. We were very lucky in that we were allowed to set up a bank, and we were the first domestic entrant in 11 years. So we had a lot of work to get our licenses. We got our licenses in Australia, in New Zealand, and the UK, and it was a pretty fun time. So I decided this was a good place to be. We had a brilliant idea. Everything was outsourced. We had a few people in a room and brilliant third-party providers. So it was all about managing third-party risk. And I think that's a large part of being an effective fintech, knowing when to do it yourself and when to outsource and managing those outsource relationships appropriately. So I thought it was a fun gig. I've certainly never had so much fun in my life because people tend to be big personalities. So I thought, well, this could be a place where I could have some fun. The investment sector is really an interesting place to be. You deal with esoteric concepts and trusts and all sorts of things, but then occasionally you are struck by the fact that you're dealing with real people and real people's futures, and I think that's the important part for me, to realise that we're always dealing with other people's money and other people's futures, and that we have to be very conscious of what their financial aspirations are, what the responsibilities of a financial service provider are, and how we manage those sorts of issues. It's people's futures. You can't cut corners, you can't not do the job. The challenges are just the challenges of working in any industry. When I first started in financial services, there weren't any women. And I remember my first job, I said, can I be paid the same as the men on this level? And I was counselled for greed. I think those days are gone, but I don't think it's different to any other job nowadays. I think initially women were not treated terribly well, but that's changed radically. I think that's because a lot of people haven't realised that women are 50% of the population. There's an enormous market for women, and I don't think it's well serviced at the moment. I think people have to understand that women are very conscious of their future. We all have jobs, we all have aspirations, and we have to operate in an environment where they feel comfortable that we're listening to what they need and want. And I'm not sure that's the case. If you look at a lot of the ads and a lot of the materials that are put out, they're put out by men for men, and you don't see females. And yet everybody's the same. We all, as I say, accounts are gender free. So people have to understand that we have a huge demographic out there that should be better serviced. And I think Tiger's doing that now. We really understand our market and our target market. Well, it's firstly the security thing. I think that most women are very conscious of security in their long-term future. I think they're more risk averse, I certainly am, and I'm not prepared to put my cash up in high-risk investments. So I think it's that whole piece of work around communication, making sure people understand what they're investing in and what the risks are, and so they can basically moderate their portfolios to their own risk appetite. I think that's really important. So quite often people don't stress that part. I know when I started in OTC CFDs, the ads were a guy with fancy car and a girl hanging off his arm, and it was spread bet, win big. We would never do that nowadays, and I'm so glad of that, because as a woman I regard that as appalling. I don't have one. I neglect my family.